Hi everyone, I'm back with another video about understanding your dreams. So today I want to talk to you about dreams of vehicles. For example, when you're dreaming that you're driving in your car, that's probably the most common one. What does it mean when there is a vehicle in your dream? I'm sure you've all had that dream. And I really believe that dreams about vehicles, whether it's a car, a bike, or motorcycle, airplane, they represent what kind of progress you're making in life, okay? How you're progressing through life. Because we are created by God to always be growing and always be developing, right? So, and He wants to prosper us in life and for us to continue to grow. So when you think about dreams about like driving in your car, it's really speaking of the progress that you're making through life, how you're progressing. And it could be in a very general sense, but it could also be more about like a certain situation or maybe even a relationship. If there's someone in the car with you, it could be about how that relationship is growing and progressing possibly. For example, if you dream that you are driving your company car, that could be speaking of your business growth, how your business is growing or progressing. But it's usually in a more general sense, let's say. And the first thing you want to look at when you have these kind of dreams is you want to take note of the condition of the car itself. So are you like in a fancy car with all these, great features, nice car, maybe a luxury car? Or are you in just an okay car? Or are you in maybe like a beat up car with the doors falling off and the wheels are flat? I mean, what condition of the car? Because that's going to give you a clue. If you're in a really nice car, then that suggests that you are well equipped, that you have everything in place to really progress through life in the manner which you're meant to. But if your car is like beat up or it's out of gas, that's a really common one where you run out of gas. It just means that you're lacking something that is needed for you to move forward. Also, you want to take note of the condition of the road. For example, if you are like on an open highway, there's no obstacles. It just means, there's no obstacles, right? You're able to move. But if you are like in a city where you're having to stop at the stop sign or at a light, then that suggests that you're having to wait and that there are delays that you're having to wait for to make progress in that situation. Or you could be off the road altogether. You don't even have to have a road. You could be like on a bumpy, really rough area. That would suggest that there's a lot of problems that you have to contend with and overcome, and that things are kind of rough. Back to the car itself. So you also want to look at not just the features and the condition of the car, but the kind of car itself. That's also going to give you some good information. For example, if it's like a station wagon, maybe it's speaking of like family matters. If it's a sports car and you are a sports car enthusiast, maybe it's some other desires that you have and whether or not you're achieving those. Also could be like an old-fashioned car, maybe some traditional values. It usually just represents something about you. I recently had an interesting dream, and I was in a van, which, by the way, if it's like a van or a bus, it usually involves more people than just yourself. Like it could just be a community of people, but generally speaking, it involves a wider realm, not just your own personal realm. But I just had a dream the other night where I was driving a van, and not only was it a van, it was one of those Volkswagen buses, that we used to have years ago. And I had a baby in the van, but I didn't have a car seat, and my baby, who was perfectly healthy, was on the floorboard of the van, and I actually had to figure out how to shift the gears, right? Because it was a manual. So that demonstrates that there's some sort of work that I'm having to do, and I'm having to shift gears. But I really think that that dream represented my current YouTube channel, because I think the van really represents some of like that, like my audience has a lot of, let's say, like 70s mentality, you know, that old 70s mentality of like peace, love, and rock and roll, you know what I mean? Like maybe not really too concerned with spiritual things that much. It's like, let's just enjoy life and live for the moment, you know? So maybe it's like I'm speaking to a lot of those kinds of people. And so in my dream, it showed up as me in this van, and I'm having to work at, you know, putting these videos out. And then I wonder why the baby was on the floorboard. And I think really that it has to do with the fact that maybe I just don't feel like I have the best place to make these videos, because I mean, I'm using my iPhone. I have to like film them at a particular time when there's enough light in here. I have to contend with the dogs barking, which happens. You do not get to see all the clips that I don't post of dogs walking in the shots, barking, and all this other stuff. So it really is quite a lot of effort to put these videos together, you know, and they're nothing fancy, obviously. So I think that's why I had that dream. But back to vehicles and what they mean in your dream. If you dream, let's say, instead of a car, it's like a motorcycle, that would suggest that's a little bit, that there's more, that's a little harder, right? The things are a little harder, maybe more emotional, because the wind's like blowing you. So maybe there's more opposition to your progress that you're feeling. Spiritual opposition. I'm going to just say that because that's what's coming to mind. Or maybe emotional, difficult emotions that you're having to deal with and feel more directly on you than being in the protection of a car, let's say. And then of course, oh, hold on. And there's not as much power behind you. So if you're in a motorcycle, there's also not as much power. Maybe you're lacking some motivation. Maybe you're just not really motivated to change things in your life, or you don't feel a sense of urgency about it. Maybe you don't really feel a sense of urgency about making progress. In addition to that, if you're like on a bicycle, then that would suggest even more difficulty, like slow progress, right? Because bikes don't move that much, I mean that far, and you're having to pedal, and so that suggests that progress is harder and that it is more work and that you're having to really strive to make progress. So it's just an interesting picture of the progress you're making in life, okay? However, it doesn't have to be negative. Remember, there's always like a positive, because maybe you're just riding your bike and you're on your favorite bike trail, or just like in nature, enjoying nature. That would just be like that you're just enjoying life. But I'm talking about when you're moving like forward, right? Another thing I want to talk about is that sometimes in your dream, it's actually an airplane, let's say. Now, I do believe that the airplane dream has a little bit of more of a spiritual component to it, because I mean, you're not here on Earth, so you're up in the air. So it's like the airplane dream really represents more of a spiritual part of your life, spiritual growth or development, rather than, you know, the daily things that would be like in a regular vehicle. So maybe even some of the higher like character developments in your character, then that would be maybe reflected in an airplane dream. And again, that could be positive, of course, if everything's going well and you're getting on a flight, let's say, in the dream. That means perhaps you're going to another level, to a higher level spiritually, as far as like your character. But there could also be problems. There could be delays. There could be, you could miss your flight, things like that, which would suggest some sort of a hindrance in your life that's keeping you from growing and developing and progressing in some area of your life. I have had many times a dream where I'm on an airplane and I'm like crashing. And that dream, it's symbolic, I believe, I hope. But anyway, I think, like, for example, the times I had that, I was going through kind of a faith crisis in my life. And so I was maybe allowing like fear to take over and not trusting God in a certain area. And so that would show up like that, you know what I mean? It could just be like a faith crisis, or it could be some sort of a crisis in a relationship where suddenly a relationship is taking a nosedive, and that's what that reflects. I've had that too. So these vehicle dreams really represent your progress in a certain area of your life and the kind of progress you're making. Now, let's suppose that you have like a crash or a wreck. That would represent, I believe, and for me, I think I've found this to be true, sort of a pattern, is it represents some sort of conflict in your life, some kind of, maybe a personality clash, maybe an argument, some kind of falling out, but it just really speaks of some kind of problem between two or more people, and then that will show up as a crash or a wreck. It could be a wreck of like a relationship or something that you're working towards that is not happening, let's say. And I also want to talk to you about walking, because although you're not in a vehicle when you're walking, it is a way that we get from one place to another and that we progress. Now, walking dreams could be absolutely fine and wonderful if you're walking, because I mean, we're made to walk, right? So if you're just walking along in a dream, again, it can mean that you're making progress very slowly because you are walking and you're not like in a car or something that's going faster. But if it's just a pleasant day and you're enjoying the day, it could be a very positive dream. But if it's like dark, it could represent kind of a depressed time in your life. And if you're walking uphill, or if you're walking through like a muddy place, swampy place, like snowy, if there's difficulty in walking, then that would represent, again, that you are having to overcome these obstacles. You're having to surmount these obstacles to make progress. You're having to deal with a lot of things that are hindering your progress. So that's what I believe dreams about vehicles represent. As you can see, it's generally pretty straightforward. Just think about the dream symbol, what you associate with it. And guys, I could not make a video about this and then not tell you this part. It's also important who's in the vehicle with you. So for example, in the car dream, who's in the car with you? Who's driving the car? You might not even be the one driving the car. That is important because it suggests you're not the one in control of the situation. And that might be fine, that might be good if there's a person driving that you trust. For example, maybe your father's driving the car. We've talked in another video about how your father often represents God. That would suggest that, you know, God's in control of this situation, right? Or it could be your husband driving the car, or somebody you love and trust driving the car, which would be fine. But it could also be someone you really don't want driving the car, in which case that would be negative and would say to you that you lack a certain control in the situation. Furthermore, you could even be the person in the back seat, which suggests even less control. And you could be perhaps trying to control, like a backseat driver, trying to control the situation that you really are not in control of. So you want to take note of that, and also how the people in the car are affecting your progress. Are they helpful? Are they reading a map? We don't read maps anymore, but are they reading like the GPS and like helping you? Are they pleasant, or are they like a negative force that maybe needs to be put out of the car, right? So you want to also think about who's in the car with you and what their personality is like and what they're doing to get the overall message in the dream. So anyway, I hope that's been, and there's my friend, I hope that's been helpful for you to understand your vehicle dreams. And again, if you like this content, please subscribe so you can get more videos. I will put them out when I can. Thank you.